This program is sponsored by the City of Quincy's Health Department. And today's topic is on art and music therapy. And before I introduce my guest, I have two guest speakers today. I'm so excited. I just want to read to you something I read from the National Institute on Aging. And they basically said that more and more research are finding that music, theater, dance, and arts can help improve quality of life. It can help with well-being. It can help with cognitive function, memory, self-esteem, stress level, and socialization. So again, today we have two special guest speakers who is going to talk more about art and music therapy and how they incorporate that in their work. So my first guest speaker is Ann Muska. She is an occupational therapist, program director of the Charlotte and Richard O'Connell Parkinson's Family Support Program at the Jewish Family and Children's Services. And with her is Meredith Griffith. She's a licensed mental health counselor, registered art therapist, and certified dementia practitioner who has worked with older adults for close to 20 years. Wow. She's currently the community art therapist for the Goddard Assisted Living and Memory Support in Brookline, Mass. So ladies, welcome. I can't wait to hear from you and learn more about how art and music therapy can really help us. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. We're eager to share. It's a great topic. Yes. So thank you for the introduction, Debbie. And again, I'm the director of the Charlotte and Richard O'Connell Parkinson's Family Support Program. And what we do is we provide therapeutic arts-based programs for people with Parkinson's disease. That's what PD stands for. And so, yes, I am a bit biased because I see this working for older adults every week, every day. So I'm happy to share some of our observations and beliefs around this topic. We also provide education and support to families living with Parkinson's. And also, I'm an occupational therapist. So what that means is I have a holistic approach to well-being. That's what the occupations are dealing with, your daily activities, whether they're getting dressed in the morning or whether they're doing art. It's all part of your occupations. So next, I just wanted to start about why are we talking about art and music? What is it about that? And I love this quote from Picasso, which is, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist when we grow up. So, we're all growing, and this is about how we can continue to be an artist because it's in all of us. And to that end, we believe that art and music is uniquely human. It's a holistic expression, and it involves mind, body, and spirit. So, YouTube is full of all sorts of fun videos of birds dancing and, chimpanzees and elephants and dogs painting. And those are great. And it shows, that we have some sort of connection. But I think what makes it uniquely human is that we're able to synthesize our observations and bring our emotions into this and really use our whole body when we engage with art and music. And my colleague Meredith will be sharing even more about that. When it comes to occupational therapy and the arts, we look at things in a few different spheres. So the first is the person, what involves the person but values and beliefs, identity, roles and routines, skills and strengths, and then cognitive, physical, and psychosocial status. As well, we're looking at the occupation. So, again, I mentioned these are different occupations we all have. Leisure is often the category we think of in terms of art. And, there are so many different types of art. There's writing and poetry, visual arts, musical arts, dance, theater, and the list goes on. And then we look at the environment. So this is definitely a physical environment, social and cultural, especially with the arts, and even legislative and institutional. And with the merger of these spheres is what we get when we have this, what we call art and music performance or occupational performance. So in essence, as we age, as we change, an occupational therapist is helping to adapt these changes so that we can continue to have this optimal performance. So whether it's arthritis that's making it difficult to hold a pen and it needs a larger grip, that may be more the person, or is it the environment where, there's distractions and we need to find a way to help someone with some cognitive challenges to be more engaged, all these things. And maybe it's just a matter of adapting the art itself. And that's what an occupational therapist can do. And what does it take to make art and music? So in terms of the person, this is just a sampling of some of the things physically. We need those visual spatial skills. Of course, that involves our brain, but, being able to perceive lines and colors and contrast. Of course, fine and gross motor coordination, depending on what sorts of art we're engaged in, and even auditory skills, of course, for music. Mentally, it takes executive function, those planning and organizing sorts of things, memory and attention. And spiritually, we engage our identity, our beliefs, and our emotions all in art and music. And so, again, these are the things that an occupational therapist will be looking at and helping to bring out to make art and music. I love this graphic because it's artistic, but it's a representation of the neural connections we have. It looks like a wild wig or something. So what are the benefits? But neuroplasticity, of course, you've heard this term probably before, and what it is it's learning a new skill. As Meredith will share, art is accessible to everyone. Even if you don't feel like you're an artist, you can still learn a new skill and try something new. And this is wonderful for brains of all ages. As well, there's more and more research out there about the mental health benefits of art. Of course, social engagement, our groups are founded on having this opportunity to make art together, and how powerful that is to engage with other people and to feel that energy in a group. And it's just a wonderful thing to witness and to be a part of. And then, of course, there are physical benefits because it is a physical activity. If it's dancing, of course, having coordination and stretching and all those sorts of things, they can be beneficial. But fine motor coordination, there's just so many great things about art. So that's it from an occupational therapy standpoint. And now I'll turn it over to Meredith.
Thank you, Anne. So I wanted to start just by talking a little bit about art therapy. I think being in the Boston area, we see it a little bit more here than maybe other areas of our country might not. So just so the audience is familiar, art therapy, it's really the idea that we all have a capacity for creativity, and we can tap into that capacity for creativity and make art. And there are inherent benefits to using our creativity. So art therapy is generally done in an active art making setting, and it's within a therapeutic relationship with an art therapist. That's not to say you won't get the therapeutic benefits of art if you're doing art on your own, but when you're working with an art therapist, we're trained to really, we do have a clinical background. A lot of art therapists do have a background in mental health counseling or a related field. So we have a general understanding of psychology, as well as how to select specific art materials that might be beneficial to a client, and how to design art interventions in a way that's going to really work with the goals that the client has for themselves. So as I mentioned, art therapists, we're all master level clinicians. And when you're working with an art therapist, we do have credentials. You want to look for somebody who is either identifying themselves as a registered art therapist, ATR, or a board certified registered art therapist, which is ATRBC. Unfortunately, because art therapy is a newer field, it's starting to become more regulated. There are certain people that will call themselves art therapists because they do therapeutic artwork or like art coaching. But to have the master's level clinician and credentials is pretty important because of the background in psychology. Art therapists work with people of all ages, from really, really young kids all the way up, throughout the lifespan. I think my oldest clients have been 100-year-olds. So really a broad spectrum and a broad spectrum of practice. You can really find art therapists in any environment, schools, hospitals, rehabs, assisted livings, senior centers sometimes will work with art therapists. But really, art therapists can work with anybody, and you might find us in a lot of different environments. And it's great that art therapy is really starting to be embraced by our society because people are seeing the benefits. Like Debbie was saying at the beginning, there's more research going into it. So there's just more opportunities to find art therapists out in the field. You want to go to the next slide, Anne? So a little bit more about art therapy, kind of why it works is because, as Anne was saying, it engages the mind, the body, and spirit. Art therapy doesn't rely on words. Sometimes we might not have the words to express what we're feeling. And that could be because we're little kids that don't have the vocabulary. It could be because we're older adults with some sort of cognitive issues and the words aren't coming out. Or it could be because we have these feelings and we don't really know how to identify them and how to give words to them. So we're going to use our visual language, which is something we learn to do as kids. By using visual images, it can kind of help get some of those feelings out. It can give voice to our experience that we might not be able to put into words. And there's a tangible outlet for our emotions, I'll talk about this a little later, but if you're really feeling frustrated and you really just want to scribble on paper or crinkle up paper and rip it up, that really can, relieve some stress. So just that tangible outlet with the art materials really can help relieve some tough emotions or encourage some positive emotions. And art therapy can empower transformation. It just helps us kind of get in touch of what we're feeling, what we're wanting, and can help us achieve our goals. And I just want to be clear that art therapy is for everybody. It can be beneficial for people who have medical concerns. Maybe you're dealing with a recent diagnosis and, want to kind of sort through their feelings around that, or people with mental health concerns. But really, art therapy is for anybody who wants to really explore their emotional, their creative, their spiritual growth. It doesn't have to be like a problem we're solving with art therapy. It's just a way to kind of engage with ourselves and, again, explore our capacity for creativity, which we have through the age span. I think Debbie talked about all of these benefits at the beginning, but art therapy can improve cognitive and sensory motor functions, just like Anne was talking about with our neuroplasticity. As we're creating something new, it's engaging our brain and it's developing those neural connections. And by engaging with art materials that we might not always, have access to or touch, it engages our senses on a different level. We have to use our fine motor skills to manipulate the art materials. It fosters self-esteem and self-awareness. Maybe you paint something that you really are proud of. That's going to make you feel good. And again, it's just about kind of understanding those feelings. Again, if you're working with an art therapist, one thing that we would do would be talk about your artwork. It's not like if you draw a tree, I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, I know exactly, what's wrong with you. It's not like that. It's more, okay, so you're going to draw maybe a tree in the wind, and we're going to talk about what that image means to you. Why did you draw a tree? What is the kind of content of the art? Kind of more about what the artist sees than about what I see as the therapist. And it's just a way to kind of deepen that self-awareness and self-focus. We can cultivate emotional resilience that way, provide some coping skills to deal with those tough emotions, promote insight to how we're feeling, enhance social skills, especially when you're in a group setting. This can be a way to engage with others when everybody's working on art together. It can be a way to reduce and resolve conflicts and distress. And we also use art to advance societal and ecological change, especially when we're thinking about, bigger like community murals that give voice to different experiences people have that now we can all see. Oh, wow, look at what this person's been dealing with. So I did want to talk a little bit about art through the lifespan. Working with older adults, I think a story I have heard numerous times is, when I was a kid, I used to love drawing. And then one day I brought this piece of art home to my mom and I was so happy to show her. And she said, what is that? Oh, that's a bear? That doesn't look anything like a bear. Or maybe there was an art teacher who, made a comment, or a friend, or, as kids were really, really encouraged to explore mark making and scribble and finger paint and kind of make a mess, right? But then when we get towards our maybe older childhood, early, teenage years, if your art doesn't look like something or look like you want it to, it can be really frustrating. And a lot of times people might feel a little discouraged by that. And again, comments from others really kind of stay with us. And that can stop people from making art or engaging in the art. Or maybe, somebody likes art fine enough. But again, as you grow up, you start to begin to prioritize other interests. So you just aren't exposed to the arts as much. The idea of picking up crayon and coloring just isn't something you do. So we kind of disengage, detach from our creativity, or we can as we age. So the idea of kind of aging strong with art and some of the art interventions or art activities I'm going to talk about in a moment, really what we want to focus on is the process of art making. It does not matter what your art looks like. We want to just engage in that process of art making because that's where we're going to receive all those good benefits I was just talking about. And really the idea is it's just about creating, like the joy of creating. Creating can be very joyful. It's going to make you feel good. So do it regardless of, what the outcome is. And I love this quote by Picasso, that it took me 4 years to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child, So we're all, we want our art, especially if, you are more artistically inclined, to look a certain way and, be good. But really kind of the joy in it is just to create like a child, to kind of be messy, to just see what you can do with the different materials to make the marks and engage that way. So I just wanted to speak to that a little bit. So just to give you a couple, art activities you can try on your own at home. Like I said, art therapists, we really kind of look at the materials we're using, and we'll make suggestions about different materials. So I broke them down that way. So I thought a good place to start was to try making a collage. So collaging is a great way to tap into your creativity without requiring traditional art skills. If you don't know how to draw, you don't have to know how to draw to make a collage. The idea here is to make a magazine collage. Flip through a magazine, cut out images or words that are appealing to you, and arrange them on a piece of paper however you like, and then glue them down. You can just simply pick things that appeal to you and do it that way, or you can think about different themes and use them to reflect on your life. Especially working with older adults, that's kind of one technique we use in art therapy, is to really reminisce and reflect on, our life experiences. Older adults have, just such amazing stories, and we don't always get to hear them. So by reflecting on our lives and putting that into our art, it's a way to kind of, again, reconnect with maybe part of your identity that you've kind of lost over the way, or to tell a story from, earlier in your adult life and share it with your family. It's a way to promote connections. So some suggested themes are an I am collage. So think about, what are you? What are some words that describe you? What are some images that describe you? What's your identity? And put that physically on the paper. You can make a collage about your family, either your family of origin, your family of choice, or your family right now, whatever that means to you. My happy place is a fun one. It can be a place you go to, relax, recharge, de-stress. Having a visual image of that to kind of look at when you're feeling stressful can kind of relieve a bit of that stress and remind you of, hey, here's a coping skill I have. I can go to this place when I'm feeling, when I'm just not feeling right and I want to get myself feeling a little bit better. Vision boarding is a technique you might hear about a lot around New Year's. I think that's when people tend to use it. But the idea is, think about what you want in your life, what you want to invite into your life, any goals you have, and physically put them on a piece of paper. And again, put it somewhere where you can see it. Remind yourself of those goals. It's just a way to, again, try to encourage what you want in your life to be there. And then finally, like I said, my life story, just a way to reflect. So maybe you'll find some images that do, trigger some of those memories for you. I did want to mention, I don't know if some of our audience might be people working with their parents who might have some cognitive challenges. If there are significant cognitive challenges, especially around dementia, rather than handing somebody a full magazine and having them flip through and try to cut out images, I would suggest pre-cut the images and then bring them to the person, and then the person can select out of a smaller group. That can be a little bit easier. I think when we have a whole magazine, it can be a little distracting. So we really have to adapt it to the person who's making the art. All right, so I think that's it for collage. Painting and drawing. So again, I think this is where a lot of that fear of having your art be good enough comes in. But just like anything, if you haven't taken the time to practice these skills, of course you're not going to be, the best artist ever. It takes a lot of time and practice to develop strong painting and drawing skills. And especially if you haven't been doing it, you're obviously not going to be able to, I don't know, I'm thinking of Van Gogh and Picasso, but I guess neither of them are very realistic in their work. You're not going to be a Rembrandt. But that's okay. It's not so much, again, about the product, but more about how you feel making the art. So with painting and drawing, there's a physical connection to that piece of paper. And you can probably see me moving my hand here. So as you're moving the pencil or paintbrush or oil pastel or crayon, whatever mark making material you'd like to use over the surface, just that feeling can be really soothing. And it can, again, kind of help you get some of your feelings out, especially if you're coloring really, really hard, that gets out some stress, or you can go kind of lighter, which again can be kind of calming. So a couple suggested activities to try. The first one is make a scribble drawing. So using a dark pen or marker, just make a scribble on the piece of paper and then fill in the spaces that the scribble creates. You can do colors, you can do patterns. You've probably seen, adult coloring books with mandalas, which are these very intricate, circular designs. There's been a lot of research on mandalas that they really promote concentration and focus because you're really, looking at all the little intricacies in the design. You're making all these decisions about what colors to put, what pattern to put. And it really, again, engages those fine motor skills when you're coloring in small areas. So it can be really beneficial. So that's something I would encourage. If making a freehand scribble doesn't appeal, look at some of those adult coloring books and look at mandalas and give it a try. And then the other example is to draw or paint how you're feeling. So to do this, you just want to maybe close your eyes, take a moment to think about, how are you feeling? Are you feeling happy? What does happy look like? What color is happy to you? What shape might happy be? And then just using color, shape, and line, you want to draw or paint the feeling on paper. And the idea here is to really work in abstract art. You might see behind me lots of abstract artwork. And, the graphic here is a piece of abstract work. The idea really is with abstract art, we're also engaging our brains a little bit more. Our brain has never seen an image like this, and it's going to work to try to make sense of it. Like, do those lines make anything? Do those shapes make anything? What do we see in the art? Maybe we don't see anything, but it's still going to engage our brain as it's a brand new image we've never seen before. And that does work too with realistic images, but don't put pressure on yourself to be realistic. Just use color, shape, and line and try to express how you're feeling that way. All right, next slide, please. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was clay. I think all of us probably as kids might have played with Play-Doh. Clay is really fun to work with because it really works those small muscles, your fine motor skills in your hand. And just by kneading and rolling out clay, it's a very physical, tactile process, right? It can really release a lot of tension the way we're relating to clay. So a couple super simple things to try. The first one is to make a pinch pot. You can kind of see the steps in the graphic there. You're just going to roll your clay into a bowl, stick your thumb in the center and pinch around the sides to make a bowl shape. What's nice about that is it's pretty quick, it's pretty easy, and you have something tangible that you created right there. Bowls can also kind of serve as containers for our feelings. So you could take it another step, think about what would I put in this bowl? What do I want this bowl to hold? And then the other option is to sculpt an object or figure. It could be simple. You could just roll it out and make a snake. I'm laughing because I was just thinking when we explored clay in one of my groups here, a woman made a hot dog because it was just easy. She was able to roll it out and, kind of fold the bun around. And then we talked about, inspired discussion of foods and foods we like to eat and foods that were important to us throughout our lives. So it's a way to kind of connect with one another. If the idea of sculpting out of just a ball of clay is really intimidating, you can also roll clay flat and then use a knife or a cookie cutter to cut out shapes. One thing I like to do in the fall is, take a pretty leaf. You can put a leaf on the clay, trace around it, cut around it, and then again, you can make it into a bowl, or it doesn't have to be anything. It's just practicing manipulating the clay and seeing how creative you can be. I think in my art groups, a lot of times I tell my residents, let's try it and see what happens. It might not be spectacular, but we're going to try it. We're going to learn something new and we're going to engage in a new way. And it might help us connect with one another. And then finally, I just wanted to put in a little plug for viewing art. While art therapy really is more active art making, there are absolutely therapeutic benefits that come along with viewing artwork, and looking at art is good for your brain. There are some benefits you can see. It increases blood flow to the brain. I think it's by like 10%. Looking at a beautiful piece of art has the same effect on us as if we look at someone we love, right? We get those feel-good chemicals, the serotonin, dopamine's released in our brain. So again, looking at art can make us feel good. As I talked about with the abstract art, we are creating new neural connections as we're looking at art, we're synthesizing it. It can challenge our critical thinking skills. We can look at it and go, how did the artist do that? How did this piece come together? It can help with problem solving skills, and it promotes empathy. We can look at a piece of art that was made by somebody in a totally different time, maybe a totally different culture, and we can start to develop some empathy about, what would it have been like to live at that time? What would it be like to live in that culture? And then we can also connect it to our experiences and our lives. So it can really promote reminiscing too, which is helpful. So I think that's about it. I just have a couple takeaways for the art here. So just to remind you that art is good for your body, mind, and spirit. You do not have to be artistically talented to enjoy these benefits. And I want to say, just keep it simple. You don't have to go and paint this huge canvas. Maybe there's something creative you're already doing in your life, knitting, crocheting, woodworking. If there's something creative you're already doing, keep it up. You don't have to, trying something new is good, again, for the neuroplasticity. But if there's something you're already doing that's giving you those same benefits, I just talked about some really simple examples. Maybe there's another medium you want to try. Fiber arts are huge, and that's something that I think a lot of people have done. So kind of give yourself credit for what you're already doing, because it is beneficial. And like I said, if you don't know where to start, you can try an adult coloring book, maybe a craft kit. And I would urge you to check out offerings at your local senior center. A lot of times senior centers do have art therapists come in and do different like craft groups, art groups. So it's a way to, maybe just kind of dip your toes in, especially with an art therapist. There's somebody there who's going to be able to offer a little instruction and really structure the art making in a way that you're going to be successful. So that's just one place where you might be able to give this a try in your life. So I think we're going to switch gears to music now. So I wanted to talk a little bit about music therapy. Similar to art therapy, music therapy is the clinical and evidence-based use of music interventions to accomplish individual goals within a therapeutic relationship. Again, the music therapist is going to help design musical interventions that are going to help you achieve your goals, whatever they may be. But you can still get the benefits of music, even if you're not working directly with a music therapist. Just like art therapists, music therapists are credentialed professionals. You want to look for the letters MT or MTBC after a music therapist's name. They design and, kind of help us figure out how to use music to best benefit us. And just like art therapists, music therapists work with all ages and in a variety of environments. Little kids all the way up to seniors, schools, hospitals, pretty much the same places you'll find art therapists. And I would say maybe even more, I feel like music therapy has been a little bit, I don't want to say older than art therapy, but I think people have really kind of honed in on the benefits of music. And so it's been a little bit more visible. So it might even be easier to find a music therapist. And, there's a lot of research around music therapy that has been really supportive of having music therapists in a lot of different environments. So it's been helpful. So what is music therapy? Music therapy can be active or it can be receptive. So it could be playing an instrument, writing a song, singing, moving to music, ways that you're actively engaging with the music. But it can be receptive too. It can be mindfully listening to music. And I think mindfully is the key word there. Yeah, it's great to have music on in the background when you're driving or doing chores, but really taking the time to listen to music and listening to specific music or pairing specific song choices with a specific task is more what we mean when we talk about receptive music therapy. So benefits of music therapy, again, very similar to what we've been talking to, really promoting wellness. Music can be used to manage stress. to express feelings, to enhance memory. A big part of my work is working with older adults with Alzheimer's or other dementias. And I think it's a pretty well-known fact that, just the way our brain stores music is different than it stores language or other memories. So music is something that people still have when they are in, the mid to later stages of Alzheimer's or other dementias. They can still connect with music. It's sort of a retained skill because of how our brain stores it. And it's something people can engage with regardless of their cognitive abilities. And it can bring up memories. And I think, we've all probably had the experience where, you're driving in your car, a song comes on the radio that you haven't heard in years, and you're brought right back to, whatever you were doing or that phase of your life where you used to listen to it. Music can help improve communication. Again, sometimes people might not be able to speak because of various, disorders or difficulties, but they can sing. So it's a way to communicate, and it can also promote physical rehabilitation and much more. So how to age strong with music. We are going to go into a couple music interventions, but I think first it can be helpful to kind of take an inventory of how music is currently in your life. So, how we experience music can be highly impactful, and it's really individualized. What I like to listen to might be totally different than what Anne likes to listen to, Maybe classical music really calms her down, but it's not my cup of tea, and it kind of, grates on my nerves a little bit. That's not true, just an example. So it's really important to kind of check in with yourself and find what works for you. So my suggestions are to take some time to reflect on the current role of music in your life. When and where do you currently experience music? And is it something you're seeking out, or is it something that's kind of in the background? And if it's just kind of in the background, how can we kind of hone in and figure out ways to increase music intentionally in our lives? And then notice how different types of music makes you feel. When you put on a certain tune, do you experience any physical sensations in your body? Maybe you want to tap your toes, clap your hands. Maybe you can't help but dance a little bit. Or maybe, you hear it and just makes you relax. You kind of feel your body relaxing. And then also, what's your emotional response? There are some songs that might make you feel really happy. There are other songs that might make you feel sad, but feel sad in a good way. There are songs that might make you feel, all sorts of things, might make you feel calmer, might bring up some memories for you that then are tied to feelings. So really kind of check in with what's your emotional response. And that's kind of where to start. So I wanted to talk about a few things you can do to actively engage with music. The first one is play an instrument. Now, I feel like that's probably the most intimidating one on this list. Of course, taking a lesson, starting music lessons, especially in, your older years is great because you're learning something new. It's really stimulating all the different, things we've talked about physically as well as mentally. And, it's hard to learn something new. It's a really good challenge for our brain. But if that seems very extreme, don't feel like you have to go sign up for guitar lessons or piano lessons. It can be really simple. You could get a simple hand drum and, drum a beat. You can shake a maraca or a tambourine. Those have the same benefits. So don't feel like you have to go learn something new, but learning something new can be very beneficial. And of course, talent is not required. So it's the act of making the music that's important rather than, anything else. The other suggestion is sing. You can join a singing group. I know a number of older adults in my life have really enjoyed rock choirs where, they're singing songs like hard rock songs from 70s, 80s, 90s. I know there is Young at Heart is a documentary that talks about this phenomenon. And again, it's really beneficial. You're singing in a group, so you're promoting social connections. You're learning new things. Of course, it doesn't have to be a rock choir. You could join your church choir or really any singing group. Sing in the shower, I honestly put in there kind of facetiously, but it's, again, just the idea. It's the act of singing is important. It doesn't matter where you're singing. And I think we all, joining a singing group, sometimes you feel like you have to have talent and be good. anybody can sing in the shower and nobody's going to hear you. So it doesn't matter what you sound like. But again, it's just the act of singing is what's going to bring those benefits. Or put on your favorite song and sing along. And again, same idea of singing in the shower. Other ways you can actively engage with music is try making up a song. You can take a familiar song and change the lyrics. One example I can think of this, I had a colleague who was retiring years ago, and we wanted to do something special for her goodbye party. So a group of residents and I took the song "Thanks for the Memory" by Bob Hope, and instead of, his words, we put in words that had to do with what this colleague did for us at my place of employment at the time. And it was so much fun, and it was a challenge to make it, fit, but it engaged our brains. It was social, it was fun, and it's something you can do on your own. So again, if it's no good, nobody has to know. Also, you can create your own tune. So maybe you can hum a little something and set words to it. And then, of course, moving to music. Toe tapping and clapping totally count as dancing. You can dance in your chair. You can get up and dance, but really any movement counts. If you're already exercising, maybe try bringing music into your exercise routine, and that can help you move. With Ann and I, we run a group that she'll talk about in a bit about that really uses art and music and occupational therapy for people with Parkinson's disease. And we talk a lot about how music can be used as a catalyst for movement. The beat of the music can help us complete tasks. It can help us get our body moving. So just be mindful of the music you're picking. Maybe you need to feel a little bit more upbeat, so you can get music with this nice strong beat, and that might be able to help you achieve whatever task you're working on. And then for the receptive engagement, some suggestions are to create a playlist of your favorite songs. Like I was just talking about, playlists can be crafted for specific moods or tasks, and it can help support whatever you're trying to achieve. Also in music therapy, there's something called the ISO principle, which the ISO principle is the idea of you want to match the music with your current mood. So if you're feeling really low, you want to pick music that is, very slow tempo soothing. But if you want to feel more energy, slowly but surely you're going to increase the tempo, the beat of the music, and that is going to be reflected in how you're feeling and your energy. So it'll increase your energy. Or maybe you're up here and you're feeling really wild and you need to calm down. If immediately you put on a soft song, it doesn't really go, right? It might feel kind of jarring. So start with something upbeat and harder, and then slowly but surely change the pace of the music. So something a little bit quieter, and see how your body reacts. Generally, it'll follow the pace of the music. And then taking a musical performance is a great way to receive, the engagement of music. Live or recorded, it's okay. Whatever you can get to, experiencing the music is what matters. Of course, coming up on the summer, there's tons of free concert series in the parks, that sort of thing. Great resources to take advantage of. Again, senior centers might offer some concerts, churches. And then, of course, there's always radio, streaming services, and mention YouTube, really whatever you have access to. And then I did also want to talk a little bit about listening to an old favorite song. Try to find a song that you haven't heard in a really long time and put it on and just see what comes up for you, reminisce and enjoy, pick something from your childhood or from your early teen years. I remember hearing a music therapist speak once, and I think around the age of 15, that's the music that really stays with you throughout your lifespan. So maybe think back to when you were 15, what were you listening to then, and put a song on, and again, see what memories come up. And then the reverse of that is listen to music that is new to you. Experiencing new music and new sounds can really challenge our brains, and ask family or friends for suggestions. I would say, especially if you have grandchildren, ask them, what are they listening to now, and have them make some recommendations for you. It's a great way to connect with them, but then also it's a way to challenge your brain, and maybe you hate it, and that's okay. You're still engaging your brain in a different way. And then the last thing I just wanted to wrap up with the music is kind of the same with the art, to remind you that music is good for the body, the mind, and the spirit. You don't have to have musical talent to enjoy these benefits. And again, keep it simple. Figure out where music already is happening in your life, how you're already enjoying it, and keep it up. Try mindfully adding music to your daily routine. And like I just said, listen to a song from your childhood or teenage years and sing and clap along and see how it makes you feel. And then to increase these benefits, try making art while you have music on in the background and see how that works for you, because that can be a really helpful strategy.
Thank you, Meredith. And to just pick up from there, I just wanted to share a case example. So we engaged in something called the Living Artfully program. And what it was funded by a grant by the Parkinson's Foundation through the Goddard House Assisted Living. And we worked together. As the OT, what I did is I provided warm-up stretches for the body. We did breathing exercises to try to help everyone get in the right headspace and posture, breathing. We worked on things like positioning for someone who might have a shoulder challenge, positioning their arm in the right place for drawing and whatnot, and just general adaptations as things came up with the people living with Parkinson's, how we can adapt the art so they can feel successful. And then we had music therapy that, just as Meredith described, we had different types of music to help with the movements and the mood of making art together. And then Meredith worked on the art, the process of expression. So just everything she talked about in terms of having, the right materials and the right, objective for the process of making art together in a group that was socially engaged. And just to share, how we work together in this unique way, one of our participants said at the end, this was absolutely a source of joy every week. This was unique and real world integration of practices, and it was more effective altogether. So we just wanted to bring that together and say thank you. And we'd love to talk more. So I'll stop this. And yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. I was jotting notes and just helping. It was jogging some memories as the art. When you talked about how people can discourage you and how that can kind of shut you down. It brought back memories when I was in middle school and I did this beautiful collage with the magazines and I submitted it, and the art teacher accused me of having my parents do the work. I was just so bummed. I was so bummed, and it did impact the other, art projects that I did. I ended up choosing colors I didn't like, and it just, just made me feel so bad. But I overcame that. I ended up redoing that project and actually gifted it to my husband, a few years later. So, I still have it hanging in my living room. But art is so amazing, and you don't have to have the talent. You don't have to be, gifted with something, because you can pick up anything and just call it art, which reminded me of a book that I love by Peter Reynolds called The Dot. I love that book. Yeah. So, can you tell me a little bit more about, for as far as art supplies, what type of art supplies do you recommend, and where would you recommend people to buy their art supplies from?
Got it. So with the art supplies, there's kind of two schools of thought on this. On one hand, if you are using nicer quality, like artist level materials, it's going to make you feel good about what you're creating. And, quality materials is like, wow, I'm really being an artist here. I'm really a professional. But on the other hand, it doesn't have to be fancy. Use what you have access to. So, the two big art supply stores that I like for kind of the nicer materials are Michaels and Blick. And again, I'm also thinking for some of our audience, maybe they might not be able to get to those stores. Places like CVS, dollar stores now have wonderful craft sections, and they have just about everything you would need. So dollar stores, CVS, even grocery stores have very small, kind of school supply sections, but you can usually find some markers and things there. It won't be a huge selection, but you can always start small and kind of work up, and kind of figure out what you like. So TJ Maxx, Marshalls, stores like that. Often you can find some little good deals back in. There's usually a row of stationery and like greeting cards, and occasionally you'll find some really good art finds there, like watercolors, markers, that sort of thing. So just kind of places you're already going, keep an eye out, because we are seeing art supplies kind of more available at like drugstores and things like that, which is really nice.
Yeah, very good tip. Very good tip. And also, if you find like a kit,
yes,
everything in there that you would need, and from start to finish.
Exactly. And I would say Michael's and dollar stores tend to have the kits more. And again, it's one of those things like seasonally, I want to say like around the winter holidays, you might be able to find them more frequently at like a CVS type of place. But they're out there. Just look.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about my 18-year-old who just finished. He graduated high school, and it has been such a busy year for him. And all he could think of before he graduated was, I can't wait to graduate just so I can sit down and paint.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's not on canvas. What he does is he buys little figurines and he glues them together and he paints them. And it gives him such joy. And, you know, he puts on an audiobook, and as he's doing that, he's just painting away, and he just feels so relaxed. And the end product looks so professional. It's just amazing. And just to the same son, when he was much younger, he was a late speaker. He was a late talker, and he needed music therapy to help bring out his self-confidence. So I could see how both of them can really impact the person as they're growing up.
Absolutely. And I think just kind of what you were saying about, you know, the painting is having a little figurine, like he made that, right? At the end, there is a result that like, look what I made. I did this. And that's like, that's just a really good feeling to have. You know, I think it does give people kind of a sense of agency. One thing I didn't talk about, but your question or comment kind of triggered my thinking is through the lifespan, especially, you know, in our older adult years. And now I'm working in an assisted living setting. So, you know, we're seeing people who are very frail or are here because they are in the middle or later stages of a cognitive disorder like Alzheimer's or dementia. A lot of the decisions and control are kind of taken away as we age. You know, there is a little bit of a loss of independence as we age. And kind of the benefits with the art and the music is you as the artist or the musician, you're in control. You know, you're the one making the decisions. You know, the arts programs that we do here, we really build in choices and really want to be empowering whoever's making the art to be making those decisions. So then at the end, you have this product. And even though I've said, you know, the product isn't the important part, the process is, the product is still important because you have like, look, I made these decisions, I controlled this, and this is what I made, and this is what I have. And you have that visual representation or musical representation. And I think that can be very powerful for people too. It's, look, I'm still here and this is what I can still do. And, you know, art and music tap into those strengths that people still have.
Yes, I've seen videos on YouTube where they would, this therapist would be with somebody living with Parkinson's, and they would put on a music. And this person, all of a sudden, who was very rigid and seemed just kind of flaccid, he would come to life. And, you know, slowly he would stand up and then start swaying and moving to music with such great coordination and balance. I can't imagine. It's just so magical. It's so magical. Do you see that from time to time or often when you're doing these type of therapies?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's you know, I've heard music described as fireworks for the brain because it uses so many different areas and, you know, just really engages the brain in so many ways. And especially there's, you know, the rhythm and a strong beat can really tap into certain circuitry in our brain to make that movement. I mean, it's almost you know, hard to control just when you have that great song that you just a strong beat that you love, and just in having that movement and the creativity too. Even in one of our Parkinson's dance dances, we pretend like we're painting the ceiling, and just having the visual can help someone who may be having those smaller movements to suddenly, kind of break out of that and be able to paint and stretch way much higher than ever before. And so it's really amazing to see. And yeah, I love it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, so as far as the session can you describe a session when you would have one for a group? How does it start? You mentioned you do warm-ups, and then can you just describe a session for us?
Yeah, it was, since it was Parkinson's focused, we tried to integrate, some bit of education, but really we tried to help everyone come into the space in terms of, having some breathing exercises together to, whatever rushing happened to get there in time and all those sorts of things. So we'd try to come together and have some breaths. And then I would, lead a stretch for hands, especially with rigidity or, some of that, tightness in the hands and arms. We'd lead some stretches through the whole body just to prepare our bodies. And then Meredith would take over. So go ahead, Meredith.
Thanks, Ann. So in our Living Artfully group, we actually ran it a few times. So we tried 2 different approaches, and I think they both worked. It kind of just depended what people wanted. So the first time that we did it, it was more really focused on kind of expressing feelings around Parkinson's, the Parkinson's diagnosis, and just what Parkinson's has kind of meant in the person's life. So actually, both times we ran the group, I always start with kind of trying to build that visual language for people. It's something we all have, but again, it's hard to connect with. So a lot of times we would check in. One of our common check-in questions is, what color are you feeling today? And I generally would start, this is like the first session of a 8 to 12 week group. We'd usually start learning about the artist Vasily Kandinsky. So Kandinsky had a disorder called synesthesia, where he basically could see music and hear colors. So we would do a little education on that, and then ask the group to, listen to a piece of music and, what colors would you associate with this? What shapes would you associate with this? And again, it was just about building the visual language. So they would do an art activity based on that. And then we talk about it and process it. So that's just an example of one of the earlier groups. And then as we went on, we would I would bring in different materials. Each group kind of built on the one previous. So, we'd also, Ann and I would work closely together to make sure we had adaptive materials. So, I'd tend to start with either oil pastels or watercolor paints, because those are fairly common, familiar materials to people. And again, people are used to holding a pen, which is about the same way you would hold a paintbrush. So then we would start with that and then kind of branch out to the less familiar, collaging with different materials, doing some clay work. Printmaking was something that we explored a lot. So each session was kind of different based on what we'd already learned. And the idea, especially of this particular group, was to try a bunch of different materials to find what worked for the person and what they most connected with.
I thought about going into studying art instead of nursing a long time ago, because there's something about it that is, both for me personally, it's not challenging, but it stretches me. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, when I see something in my mind, I get such joy when I could see it kind of become more tangible. Mm-hmm. It's like it comes to life. And there's something about it that is just so special. Yeah. And that's why when I went into nursing school, my electives were in art.
That's wonderful.
Favorite classes. So can you tell me about what other health challenges can benefit from services besides, what you mentioned for people living with Parkinson's?
So, I mean, I know I've mentioned, Alzheimer's dementia a lot. It's just a way to connect, without words or without relying solely on words and solely, vocabulary. It engages the different parts of the brain, and really it engages our retained skills when we do have those cognitive disorders. But I've seen it, both art and music therapy be really beneficial for people with different medical conditions, whether it's just, reducing the stress, or whether, again, it's expressing the feelings, or getting in touch with, maybe parts of your body. One thing that's just coming to mind is, if somebody has cancer, right? And that's really something that can affect a specific part of the body, and people can have all kinds of complex feelings about. Doing an art activity where you're drawing a body and, processing some of those feelings, could just be really helpful. That's one of the first things that came to my mind. I don't know, Anne, if you want to chime in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say certainly, stroke and things like that, but I also wanted to maybe say it's a trick question, because I think anything could be helped by art and music therapy, just as a human, because, as an occupational therapist, whatever may be challenging in terms of actually doing it, we're there to help, adapt it and find ways to still engage with it. So certainly it does bring a lot of healing and processing. And thankfully, research is coming more and more in terms of supporting that and the mental health benefits of it. Coming out of the pandemic, I think that's one thing that's really been encouraging, is to see that scientists are like, oh yeah, actually, having art as part of your wellness and as part of your treatment program can really have benefits. So yeah, it's I think it's for everyone.
Yeah. And I did also want to mention, just mental health. I think we see a lot with like anxiety and depression. I think those are, obviously two big mental health challenges that everybody struggles with at some point. And I think the arts can be really beneficial for that. Again, it's just getting in touch with your feelings, maybe boosting the mood a little bit, just whether it's the brain chemistry from physically doing the work, or whether it's just, it helps you get some of those, some of the tension out. I think it can be helpful.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Especially for people who are needing that extra help. At Tufts Medical Center, we have this big atrium, and we have a piano. Mm-hmm. And so from time to time, doctors, nurses, they can just sit down and start playing, and it really fills the whole atrium. Nice. We have different levels of the atrium, and boy, you could really, it changes you when you hear such beautiful music that's live. There's something about live music, as opposed to like listening it, on the radio or whatever. There's something very extra special, very healing about it. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. You're connecting with the musician, the musician's putting a bit of themselves into that music. And so, yeah, you're connecting with that and whoever else is around and also listening to that. So, there's definitely kind of that, I don't know, almost like intangible connection between the audience and the musician.
Yeah.
Social engagement of experiencing it with other people, it has another connection there. So, yeah.
Yeah, that word connection, that seems to be one of the underlying words for a person connecting to the art that they're trying to create, or the music that they're listening to, or connecting with community, or just connecting with, what ails them. That seems to be one of the most, like, the underlying word for, the art and music therapy, I think. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are some key takeaways that you want people to take away with, and also any resources that you might want to suggest for them to look at after this program?
You can get a prescription, a referral for occupational therapy for anything. And, occupational therapists love to work with people in arts, and see how that, the holistic comes together through art. So, just talk to your primary care physician or your specialist and ask for a referral for occupational therapy.
For art and music therapy, there is the American Art Therapy Association. There's the American Music Therapy Association. If you want to learn more, they both have websites. They can direct you to how to find an art therapist. Websites like Psychology Today would have art and music therapists listed if you are interested in, kind of connecting with someone and doing some one-on-one individual work. But like I mentioned, I think senior centers are a great resource. If you're not sure if this is for you, you're not sure you want to, get into something individual, a lot of times you might be able to find like a session, a special program offered by an art therapist, and that would be a good way to connect and give it a try. And there are definitely some community organizations around that offer, different art programs and music programs. So just kind of see what's available in your local community.
That's a very good idea. Even libraries going
yes.
to libraries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Or if there's, I know there's Age Strong Boston, there are different like senior councils or councils on aging that might have recommendations. So that's another good resource to check out.